Welcome back to another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. If you're in the market for a new car, make sure you check out my guy, Matt Bowers, at one of his many dealerships throughout the region. Has the new pre-owned dealership going in up on Vets right below us, right below our studio up there. Make sure you go and check them out. P, what you got for us today?
We got our first segment presented by Hard High Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. Nick, is it a foregone conclusion that the Saints will be drafting a quarterback in this year's draft?
I think foregone conclusions a little bit strong, but I think they're always in the market for those players. They're always looking for a quarterback. They're always looking for an opportunity. And I think we've just seen that reflected over the last several years in their want to draft quarterbacks almost every year now. And I think that same approach is going to play out. And if you aren't getting somebody at the top of the draft, I think you do have to be looking at that mid-level market, trying to find lottery tickets in the fourth, fifth round, third, if it's there. They just met with Quinn Ewers and a bunch of Texas players the other night. They had a dinner with them. They're up in Ohio State today. I'm assuming they'll be looking at their quarterback there, and he could be a fifth or sixth round pick. So I think you just want to be comparing those guys to the guys you have in your building and seeing if there's traits that you want to develop. Is there something elite somebody does in the fourth or fifth round that you could bring them in, get them in your program, and see if you can build that one trait up to overcome whatever shortcomings they might have. Like Spencer Rattler is a great example. I think there's a ton of stuff that he does really well, and that he has a plus arm. It's elite, it's top level, but there are other shortcomings. His stature, some of the things he does, his processing that needed to be worked up. And you work with that and you see, hey, maybe I can find a starter. Maybe this guy has the drive, the determination, the ability to overcome these other things, and you try to work with it. So I think it's just a good idea to be doing that until you have Drew Brees, until you have your Aaron Rodgers, until you have your Patrick Mahomes. I think you got to be taking swings in those middle rounds. And obviously, if there's somebody up high and you feel really good about that bet, make sure you're trying to do what you can do to get one of them guys.
No, for sure. I agree that if you have somebody that you're really high on and he's available, you go there and you take him. But you look at the previous quarterbacks drafted, really Spencer Rattler is the one that you could put pen to paper on. He had some real PT during the season and he went 0-6. Now, what was the offensive line situation? What was the team situation at that point? Up in the air, but just body of work put on the field. He had some good showings, especially in the first half of games. That Washington game where he came in the second half and almost brought the team all the way back to a victory was pretty showing of his tenacity and grit. But you look at somebody like Jake Haener, who was the quarterback that was drafted by the Saints before Rattler, and the limited amount of playing time he got, he didn't really show much of anything. So I don't think you should just be swinging for swinging's sake. I think you should take a swing at somebody that you kind of know, all right, we can build this person up, or like he's really probably going to be our future. And at this point, they really need to start looking at the future.
I agree totally with that. I don't think you just dive in the water and try to get one just to get one for the sake of getting one. I think as a strategy, you want to be diving into the water, but you need to know that you're diving in where there's enough depth and you aren't just going to hit the bottom. And there's a chance of survival and getting someone and possibly working with them and possibly making them better. But yeah, you made a couple good points there. Look, I think Haener had some traits that I think were worthwhile chasing. I think his accuracy is really good. There's some grit and determination there, but it hasn't translated into the games. And you're going to miss more often than not, especially when you're trying to go in the middle rounds. You're going to miss more often than not if you were drafting a quarterback in the first round every year. They're really hard to find, and then the odds go down further and further. So it's not a strategy where there's a destination that's certified. You're just trying. Like you're taking chances. You're swinging the bat. And yeah, it has to be somebody you want to swing the bat on. The other thing with Rattler, yeah, I think he showed some really good things. I think that there's still a chance. I think that he showed plus ability at times. First half of games, as you said, really good. There were a lot of times where if he had just played the first half and then the starting quarterback came back and took over the second half, we'd be sitting here saying, no, you gotta move on. You got to do this. But then unfortunately we'd see more of the game and things would happen. And it does make you wonder why that would happen. Was Kubiak throwing everything he had at it in the first half and the bag of tricks just runs out because you don't have offensive linemen. You don't have receivers. The quarterback isn't the starting quarterback and you're overcoming it. And there's just a point where you can't hide everything anymore. And maybe that's what happened. I don't really understand the differences from one half to the other. It was kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
this is not intended as any disrespect to Rattler. He also didn't show enough for you to say I'm not trying anymore. Yeah, he didn't show enough for you to say I'm not trying in the same spot anymore. He didn't show enough to say they shouldn't try to go in the first round. He showed something. There's something there. There's a chance. You chase a chance, but the chance isn't enough to say no way. We're done over here. We got Jordan Love coming up behind Aaron Rodgers. No, you don't have that right now.
Right. And that's the point that, based off of that, is there even a point where you say, I'm not trying? Now, if you have a Patrick Mahomes in his prime, okay, yeah, you can start getting people in, but you're not trying to swing for the next guy. But when it comes down to the time, when you have the time to draft somebody saying that same name, like Patrick Mahomes, and you start Drew Brees in the building, you take that swing because you have to be
Yes.
prepared for the future. And we talked about it a little bit last week, and then on Monday's show, with the pro day at Miami, Cam Ward, he showed some things. Kind of, what did you notice from the clips from his pro day?
Yeah, I watched it. It was good. He does a lot of things really well. Great arm, great feet, great release, elite release. Just his ability is obvious. You
Yeah,
see it. And the thing with the pro day is really if it looks bad, that's the thing that becomes notable. It should never look bad. You're scripting it out. You're throwing to known receivers. It's a controlled atmosphere. It's really about just letting people see your mechanics and your ability without anything else around it. And I think all those things are great. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's a good
yeah,
quarterback. There are things that obviously I think need to be a little bit better when you look at his tape. I was going through it the other day, but so many pluses there. There's so many things that he does really well. The arm is crazy. What you saw at the pro day, you see in the games. The improvisation is really good. He has a want to throw the ball over the middle, which a lot of young quarterbacks don't want to, and he does that. I like a lot about him. I think he's somebody. I don't think he's can't miss. I don't think he's Joe Burrow, that type of Andrew Luck type prospect where it's like
yeah,
if he goes anywhere, he's going to be fine. I think like most quarterbacks, like a Jaden Daniels needs to end up in the right spot to kind of shine all the way through it. Like most quarterbacks outside of one every decade, even Mahomes needed to end up in the right spot, I think, with the right people because there were really good
yeah.
skills, but it was raw. And I think Cam Ward's kind of from a similar cloth. I think there are really, really good skills. I think he needs to end up in a situation where he can grow and you can make that blossom. And I think that really is going to come down to if the Titans want to take him, do they believe that they have that situation? If somebody trades up for him, do they believe they have that situation? I think that's the main thing with him. But everything's there for him to be good if he ends up in the right spot.
No, for sure. And that's a conversation you and I were having yesterday about these young quarterbacks having time to kind of get adjusted to the league, learning how to mature and learning how to kind of handle some of the stuff. Now, if you're taking in that first 5 picks, you're expected to come out and do something for sure. But I think just the process itself of enjoying the process and growing and having growth as a player. Because if you look just at Cam Ward, you look at him when he was at UIW, he was raw talent, but it had to get refined a little bit. Then he went to Wazoo, refined a little bit, and now at Miami, he became a Heisman finalist. So I think just that continued progression along the board is always going to be good for a player. But besides Cam Ward, I know the Saints were at Texas Pro Day yesterday. They're at Ohio State today. Is there anyone that you think they're kind of like pinpointing on in the event that they miss out on? Because I mean, probably they will. He's going to be like the first quarterback taken off the board.
Yeah, it would be completely different types of players. I think Cam Ward, if you can get Cam Ward, if Cam Ward falls or whatever, if he
Yeah.
becomes someone they decide they want to trade up for and they can't, and we don't know if they want to do that or not. It's just a conversation you start having
Hmm.
this time of year because they're good players, and we know they really like him. We know they really like him, and they should really like him. Do they like him enough to go get him? I have no idea. I have no indication that's the thing that's happening, but they really like him. So I think anyone else after that though is from a completely different cloth. You're going from we think this guy's the franchise to is this guy worth a fourth round pick over a reserve offensive tackle?
Right.
I think that's the math becomes completely different. So I don't know if you target anyone through that vein. I don't know that there's anyone that I know that they're going after. I'm okay with the theory though. I'm never someone that goes, "Why'd you burn a draft pick?" If you really think a quarterback has a chance, and if that's in the second round, the first round, the third round, I'm really okay with missing. The only way I'm not okay with missing is if you make the significant investment to move up. If
Yeah.
you're trading everything to move up for a quarterback, you cannot afford to be wrong. That has to hit. There's no wiggle room there. He has to be your quarterback. And otherwise, though, if you sit and pick at 9, if you sit and pick at 40, if you sit and pick the 27, 15, I don't care. It's a worthy endeavor. You can miss on Mac Jones, and I'm not mad at you for it, because that's the only way to get one. But if you do the all in, we're going to get him, you can't have a Davenport situation, especially a quarterback.
No, no. But I mean, in that same conversation, whatever happens in this draft and those type of things will be the pieces that set up the first year of Kellen Moore. And that'll take us into our next segment presented by Shawbear Insurance, the Earhart Agency. What does success look like in year one of Kellen Moore? Is it Derek Carr at quarterback? Is it them venturing out and getting somebody? Is it just leaving all of that as it is and then bringing in other pieces at positions like guard, tackle, on the defense? What does success look like for Kellen Moore in year one?
Just one point though on the last thing. My pick though in the seventh round, I'm going Hunter Deckers. That's my guy. I'd go all in on.
He's snapping it.
Not all in on, just to seventh. Like I throw a seventh at him to see.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Success in year one is kind of interesting for Kellen, and I think it can be defined a lot of different ways. I think obviously part of it's on the ledger. I think you need to be right around 500. You can't be worse than you were last year, especially when they're making efforts to try to be a better team. But I think, well, maybe not a better team, but to sustain and add to what they had last year. But I think overall, like the main thing to me is just going to be it's going to be something that I think is felt almost more than it's seen, and you can feel it being around. Even from we're in the building, but we're at a 50-yard vantage point. But even at that 50-yard vantage point, you could still feel things, and there's still things that come out of a locker room when everyone's pissed off. And if you aren't hearing things coming out of the locker room, and if you aren't feeling that, and there's just a general excitement around what's going on, and when you're in that locker room, I think you know where to go to feel the temperature on different things. If the temperature feels good in some of these corners, I think that would be a highly successful thing. I think it's just about really starting to establish the culture, which again, seen and felt more than seen, I think.
Right.
And then number two is the injury thing. Like Ted Rath has to work. Like that has to be a hit. That has to be a hit. You got to have a plan on it. You got to improve that. And I think injuries are something that are earned. Sean Payton said that, and I agree with it. I think it's something that's earned. I think part of the injury thing last year, and we saw a little bit of a changeover when Rizzi took over. I think part of that was cultural. I think part of it's people aren't bought into everything that's
Yeah.
going on, and details start lacking. And I think when the details start lacking, that's going to be on some of the body maintenance stuff. That's going to be on some of the stretching. I mean, man, you see it. Like we go out there, we watch them stretch. There's some days where it's like, what are they doing? Like nobody's out here actually
Exactly.
stretching. And then Rizzy takes over, and you see the whole thing because people were bought into it again. I just think little things like that are fraying of the culture is where you start to see it, is just in those little minor details that you may not be paying attention to, but then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, I don't know that I ever seen so and so ever stretch, and
Right.
then all of a sudden you see him stretch, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. And that used to be a thing with Drew. Drew used to turn that thing into a competition, and literally every single day you would see him out there until the very end, and nobody was going to stretch longer than him. Like it felt like there were a couple guys that would try to compete, and Drew would just keep going and keep going. And then once they were done, he would stop. And just seeing if there's things like that going on, I think you have good culture. I just want to see a culture established.
No, Breeze had a patented stretch move that became like viral on the internet. It's like something that he does. So that's definitely a person that took it seriously. And even you look at some of the leaders on the team, man, we've done the stories on how they take extra care of their body, outside of the building, how they take extra care of the preparation that goes into playing on a game day. And then you look at the buy-in, and I feel the shift kind of already. We'll have to see how it goes throughout the season. But you look at the buy-in of somebody like Chase Young, who's only been here for a year and is talking about how he's made a significant effort in investing in his body, in his personal time by buying a machine for his home. And I think I mean, I know it's tired of just saying, "Oh, injuries, injuries, injuries." Without the injuries, this team would have made the playoffs, or you know, any type of narrative you want to form on that if the injuries weren't happening. But injuries happen to everyone. You just have to ensure that you can roll with the punches, that you can make it happen. Like even last season, just talking about how crazy it was, we would go to like a Friday practice and then we'll wait for the injury report to come out. And we would have a general expectation of, okay, I know this person barely practiced this week. This person was limited, no pads or whatever. Then you come out and P. Werner is hurt. Olave is hurt. And it's like, how did that happen in that small window of time? So I definitely think that Todd Rath and him coming in and really, I don't know if it's flipping it upside down, because there were some good things at the end of the season with the way that Rizzi introduced, what was the phrase, dynamic stretching, that practice. I think just that level of buy-in and carryover will kind of float this team, man. But talent-wise,
the activation period.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, the activation period. Talent-wise, though, I mean, they're running the back. They re-signed Juwan. They re-signed Chase Young. You have a lot of the same people at these different positions. So we'll have to see. I think putting a number on it, success would look like, of course, better than the 5 games they won last year, but maybe 7. 7 right now for me is, okay, this is something. I've been burned too many times to go higher than that.
Yeah, if they went 5, I would be shocked if it's 5 or worse. I would be shocked, and I feel like that's kind of the expectation in the fan base, and I don't really understand it. I was at the barber shop yesterday, and we were talking about it. I was like, yeah, I think they'll probably be like right around 500. 500? Shout out to Chris. Check him out at Revival. Chris agreed with me. But yeah, they said they were just in there, and that's just kind of the tone of the fan base. So is that it's going to be worse? Like, how is it going to be worse? Like, the level of negativity is kind of insane right now, really, around the team, and I get it, and I get why it exists, and I get that last season was rough, and there hasn't been significant change in the path. I get frustration with the path and everything, but I would be really surprised if the path doesn't lead you in that 7 to 9 basket, which is where the league is designed to be. And there's obviously, you have your outliers on one side and your outliers on the other, the teams that are really, really bad and the teams that are really, really good, and they exist over in their spaces. And then everybody else is in the middle, and the league is designed for, you get a couple lucky breaks and you exceed, or things go significantly wrong and you fall the other way. Things went significantly wrong for the Saints last year. If they adjust some of those things, I expect them to be right back in that middle portion. And that's where I think the conversation should exist from, is that the right approach or is that the wrong approach? But it shouldn't be, this is ass and everything is terrible and they're going to win 3 games. I just don't see a 3-win team here. I don't see a 5-win team here. I see a team that's in the middle, and and I've started to get frustrated with it. It's tiresome. It's boring. It's feels like the same thing over and over, but it's just the differing philosophies. Are you in the middle and you try to hit and go, or do you try to bottom out and then build up if you hit from there? The argument would be, if you go way down and bottom out, maybe you're closer to getting your quarterback. The argument for being in the middle would be, it's always hard to get the quarterback, and it's easier to get to 12 from 8 than it is from 4. And it's just a differing philosophies. But the idea that they are worse than a 5-win team or a 5-win team, or I just don't agree with that. I would say, I think 7's a fair number, and 7's probably even a little bit snake bitten, to be honest. If you factor in injuries and better coaching, it's probably a more realistic number. But I'm at 7 with you. I've been bitten by the snake. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. The blind faith is over. I think 7's a really fair number, though.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll have to see what they do in the draft. If they add a piece where it's like, hey man, this could possibly add a win, or a late free agent signing, something like that going into camp, then that number can definitely go up. But I think I don't want to say the cynicism is warranted across the board of saying, oh, well, this team sucks, they're going to be 3 wins, just blow it all up. Hey, I'm not even in the point where I'm like, hey, you're completely wrong, but it's just take a breath, think about it.
It's mad talk. Yeah, it's mad talk. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. But hey, it's warranted. You've been bit on the butt a couple of times.
People should be mad, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're going to hit a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more NOF.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The number 1 grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana.
1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, your local insurance experts. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com.
Welcome back for more NOF. It is now time for our next segment presented by Aaron Rose. Nick, we talked about the additions to the team that have come in. A new addition to the team signed earlier this week, Dillon Radunz, guard. What does it look like, man? Does it look like he has a potential to fight for a starting job? Because Lucas Patrick, he went on to another place, so that spot is kind of open.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's probably the guy that's projected to be that. And I would imagine they enter the draft trying to maybe find somebody to compete at that position to possibly knock him off. But you set that bar and he's that guy. I think just looking at profile versus profile, I might like his profile a little bit better than I like Lucas Patrick's coming in last year. And I thought Lucas Patrick ended up being a fine replacement level player. So getting another fine replacement level player here, I think they might have done it, but I would have thought Uli Udoh could have been a replacement level player last year too, and it turned out he just did not fit, and it was not good at all. So that can maybe be tough to project. So yeah, I like getting him in there. I think he's the right type of guy to have if you're not going to spend any money on somebody. Has experience, was a second round pick, gives you some profile and background and pedigree and all those things that you want to have in that type of player. He's played more on the right side than the left, so I do wonder what that means for his fit with the team. Obviously, it would be on the left side of the line. So does it translate? Probably. He has a little bit of experience on both, but it's like 300 snaps at that position and 1,500 on the other side of the line, something like that. All his heavy snaps have come on the right side. So we'll be learning how to play a little bit with a different hand and making that the more consistent thing. But I think he'll be able to do it. I think there's some quality there when you look at him. Nothing that changes your outcome or anything like that. But I do think maybe it's a little bit more than just sticking a cone in a pothole. Maybe you're filling it up a little bit, but you aren't bringing out the cement truck either. So I think you still need that cement truck, but you got the asphalt bag out there, and it's going to hold up hopefully for a little bit.
You get a good Samaritan plotting on filling a pothole himself, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Not.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Now the backstory there. Yeah, Brandon stopped me from trying to fill in a pothole on my block. I got sick of it. I was ready to do it, and he pointed out the logistics and how deep it was, and pointed out how stupid it would be to try to do it. Yeah.
That was gonna be a wild decision. Oh, like man, I don't know how you. It's a lot. It's a lot that was gonna happen. But
yeah,
you got.
I had enough.
Guy.
I had
he
enough.
Was determined to do it.
Yes. Yeah. I had enough.
And man, Nick gonna fix the city. But not nearly the significant amount of investment that you're willing to put in your own city, but that the Saints put into Trevor Penning. But what does this mean for Nick Saldiveri? He was, projected to be the starter going into training camp, got hurt. Lucas Patrick came in, never turned back. So what does that mean for him, man?
He needs to win a job and find a way to stay on the team. These aren't the people that drafted him. They didn't scout him. There's nothing tied to him. Nothing. He's got to show something to make the team. I continue to believe in his athleticism and his ability. It just hasn't gotten on the field or anything like that. And we're past the point of potential with him. It's been long enough. You've had it. You've been around. You've played. You didn't show it. It's time to show it. And now nobody has anything tied to you. So you aren't handpicked by them or anything like that. I think he could win that job. I think he has the ability to do it. He just has to do it. And at this point, there's no reason to think that's going to happen until he proves you wrong. So we're past all that. Last year was the, hey, this is the guy. Year 2, it'll be better. Nope, didn't happen. So I think now he has to win a job.
No, and I'm at that same level. And I think he can do it. You know what I mean? He's young still. He's still young. He has 3 years, 2 to 3 years of experience in terms of like learning the playbook and everything like that. But why am I more familiar with your swag than with your play? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I need to see some stuff on the field to kind of say, oh yeah, there we go. Saldivari. It's just now or never for him. I think it's now or never for a couple of guys, but I think he's towards the top of that list of being, all right, I got to make this happen before I'm rolling. You know what I mean? Let's roll on into our next segment. Talked earlier about the additions that the team has made. They brought in Brandin Cooks last Friday. That means they're not going for a bigger body receiver right now. Now, that can change later on in free agency, after the draft, all that. But what does this mean for Juwan Johnson, a wide receiver converted to a tight end, in terms of him being looked at as, all right, he can go out there and make those big catches? The name you said the other day, Jimmy Graham, not comparing them to, but can he fill that role?
I think that's the $10 million question with him is, can he fill that role? And
at significant points of the season.
We're talking about Juwan?
Yeah.
I don't like the bet right now. I haven't seen enough to make it feel like he's the replacement, that he's the guy that could do that. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Jimmy Graham literally did that. Made like 4 catches, and they were all those types of plays because nobody else was making them. And he was brought in those situations. So I think he can. And I think we've thought he could for a long time. And there are times where he does. But it's not something where I would feel comfortable saying this is the guy for that role going into the season. And again, that's not meant as disrespect or anything like that. It's just we have not seen that on a consistent basis. There was a point in time where I believed in it. A year he had the 7 touchdowns. You started to see it, and you started to think, hey, this is about to be the guy. And then that build upon, I don't think, was quite there. And my problem with him last year is that it felt kind of, I don't know what the term is, but underwhelming for a while. And then everybody got hurt. And then you saw the push at the end of the season. So the numbers are there, but in actuality, when things were really mattering, it didn't feel like he was writing many of the verses on there. And then he came in at the end, and okay, cool. That's good. But needed you on the OG, not the remix. It felt like he was more on the remix. And yeah, I mean, I just kind of feel like, there just needs to be more before you can believe in that.
No, for sure. I mean, you talk about those 7 touchdowns. Yeah, those were significant. That was a good mixtape project that you'll hear on Twitter, and like, hey man, dude's spitting. Yeah. But then when it comes time for the album to come out, it's like, where's dude? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he'll come in, throw ad libs and a couple songs. It's like, all right, we need to see. And he's self-aware. He's talked about it. He's talked about how, when he was injured, came back, and he hadn't been able to make real plays until the end of the season, when it's basically all done. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of it also. But something that kind of stuck out to me last season is when he was injured and he was still on the field at training camp, walking around, and then at the end he would hit the jugs machine, versus some of the other players who were injured during that time that they were nowhere to be found, or they were in the training room getting taped up and, like out of sight, out of mind after that. He kept himself visible. But I think for sure it is time. You got the money now. Like, you better do it. You know what I mean? There's no more potential no more. Oh, well, I think he can do this. He's talking about adding to his bag of blocking. Perfect. Do that. But make sure you go out there and able to catch. And now, I know that's a car crash waiting to happen in certain situations, but that's why they have you. You're a bigger body guy.
Yeah.
You're a guy with hands. Make it happen.
Yeah, he's got to fill that role. He's got to fill that role for sure, no doubt. He's another guy. The point of potential is long past. It's you're on your third. He's on his third deal. He's on his third deal.
No,
yeah, it's got to happen. It's got to happen at this point. And he's not a young player anymore. He's in his late 20s. It's time. It's time. The position switch happened. You're in it. You got paid twice. It's time. Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, half off of all diagnostic charges, and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. Services include AC and heating service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000. Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience. Whether you are a local New Orleanian or a fan in town for the game, get your pre- and post-game fired up at Aaron Rose. Local chaos and local love for the black and gold. Wake up and live with daily drink specials, mimosas, screwdrivers, Bloody Marys, and hot or frozen Irish coffees, all just $3 or $4 between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Aaron Rose, half a block from Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, 811 Conti Street.
Welcome to the Queen Casino, the crown jewel of entertainment destinations. From the thrill of gaming, where every spin and deal brings you closer to fortune, to the excitement of sports betting, where you can feel the rush of victory. Our spaces and catering menu are perfect for any event. From business meetings to grand celebrations, immerse yourself in our vibrant atmosphere with live music that keeps the party going all night long. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back for more NOF. It is now time for our Martin Wine and Spirits question of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's so much more than just wine. Today's question comes from David Tucker. David asks, in an ideal scenario, which positions should the Saints prioritize with their first 3 draft picks, considering both team needs and value of each position?
We're taking QB off the board here, right? Obviously, QB's one.
Yeah.
QB's one. Let's go back and forth. What's your number one?
Defensive end. I think that's
okay.
That's crucial and important. So defensive end is number one for me right there.
Wide receiver would be next for me, I think.
Sure.
I have questions about T-Mac. I really like his tape. I really like his body type. I really like his potential. But there are a handful of snaps when you watch him where it makes you wonder, is this a 100% guy every single snap? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I think that's something that you got to answer in your interview process. Weird situation. People left there. I don't know. But you catch a snap every now and then where it's like, oh, man, I don't know. So that's something that I would need to know. If you feel good about that after talking to him, cool, take him there. I don't see another receiver there. But in an ideal scenario, give me wide receiver second.
Nah, and going back to number one at defensive end, if you could get the Michigan deep, do it.
Yeah.
Don't even question it. Just do
it.
The
DT, Mason Graham?
Yeah.
Mason Graham. Yeah.
Just do it. Just get a defensive line player that's just impactful. That's desperate need right now.
He's a monster, man. He's a monster. Yeah. He's the guy, like, I text with a handful of scouts, and
Oh, yeah?
he's a guy that I get like just randomly. Hey, yo, look at this clip. Those are the one. He's the guy that I feel like is showing up on my phone more than anybody else.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
If I hope they can make it happen. And third, it gets kind of dicey because you need a little bit of everything. And I think you would have to go offensive line in terms of order of importance. That's where I would be at. So if that is Will
Yeah.
Campbell, so be it.
A left tackle with long arms would be the ideal guy. Will Campbell doesn't give you that, so you just got to feel good about it and hope that he can be your left tackle. And if he is, he is. If he is, he is. It's a funny thing. You don't think like an inch matters or 2 inches matters, but then you look at history throughout the league, and man, it really does feel like it matters. And they took one last year with shorter arms, and they already put him on the right. It's just a lot of compromising. Bill Parcells used to say, if you keep making exceptions, you're going to end up with a bus full of exceptions. And okay, you made one, now you're making two.
Yeah.
I don't know. Will feels special though. Will, you watch, he's an amazing player. He is an amazing player. He's steady. You watch his interviews, the way he speaks, the way he talks, it sounds like a coach is talking. Very smart player. I feel like his character's off the charts. There's a very good chance that he could end up being a foundational piece for somebody at left tackle. I just know that they have been very hard and staunch on their exceptions list. And that player is so far off the minimum requirement that they have that it would just suggest this is where it goes in their system. But maybe Will is an exception, and you make that exception and it pays off. The other position I would throw on here, just based on current need and I think future need, cornerback is definitely on that list. If we're going to 4, and then I think it's everything else after that.
Everything else, including, I mean, they're going to say it in the comments, running back.
I don't feel like that's a must in the first 3 rounds. I feel like these other ones, if you're filling it for now in the future, absolutely. Running backs on that list, tight ends on that list. But I think if you're tiering them, there has to be a separation in the tiers at some point. And I think we've hit that on that next tier of player.
Sure. Going back to Will Campbell, though, I think his level of self-awareness, you'll hear him talk about some of the games that he had this past season where he was just getting whooped, and then he'll be like, yeah, I was getting whooped, but I had to make sure that it didn't happen again. I think that's something that's an intangible, but yeah.
Special makeup, yeah.
Yeah, you talk about making I never thought about that. You keep on making exceptions, you're going to have a bus full of exceptions. That's a phrase to carry along.
Yeah, all of a sudden, if you keep lowering your standards, you just don't have standards anymore. And Will's a good person to lower your standards for. Like if on a measurement, he's a great one to lower your standards for. But you just did it last year, and that's the thing. If you get that player in your building, and you got to switch it up, and I don't know, he could be your right tackle though. He could be your right tackle, but you got 2 of them, and I don't know. At least that right spot's open. I don't know. It just feels risky at a certain point, but he is somebody that I think is an amazing player. And really, if I had to bet on it, when I speak about that position and everything, is more about just what I've seen and known throughout time with them. And my bet is on him being a really good left tackle / right tackle for somebody, but we'll see.
We'll see. Even like taking it back to a conversation Mike and I had last week about which players, can take a leap and need to take a leap into next season. I think with Tali Fuaga, somebody who they made an exception for in terms of arm length, his faults were kind of masked by the amount of injuries on the offensive line and the inconsistency of play on everybody else besides him. I think now, going into this year, when you add another new piece, you're looked at as all right, your pillar on here right now. I think he has to be, a little more consistent in some things, but I think
no doubt.
I think he'll overcome those things. But I think that's on the list, and that has to be, kind of more honed in on this year instead of just looking at a broad spectrum of, hey, you're on the field, you're good in my book.
Yeah, he definitely benefited from just there being so many issues with the team last year that he didn't get the high level analysis and the under the microscopeness that typically you would end up getting in that type of position as the first round pick and everything. I thought he was just fine. I think there's room for growth. I don't think he was bad. I don't think he was great. Good. Just a baseline level of good. but you weren't thriving with him, but you also weren't dying with him. Yeah, I think that he would have gotten picked apart quite a bit more analytically by people like us.
Yeah.
Had there not been so many issues with the team. If things are going good, you're looking at the first round pick a lot closer than you were, but it was just there was an absolute fire and his portion of the room wasn't on fire. So you're just looking over here most of the year. And I think he absolutely, I think you're right. He benefited from that big time.
Yeah.
But I think he's a good player and I think he has a lot of upside.
So do I. That'll do it for this edition of NewOrleans.Football. We appreciate y'all for stopping in today. Make sure you subscribe to the site using code NOF for 20% off your first payment. Catch you next time.